Hello YouTubers, Joe Kersey here on Saturday, December 5th, 2015 at 14:20 in the afternoon, Eastern Daylight Time. Or Eastern Time, not Eastern Daylight Time. Well, you know, sometimes you don't know whether to shit, fuck, or go blind. Now this morning at 9 o'clock, we had at the church, lay reader and chalice bearer training, which both of these tasks are lumped under the name of lay Eucharistic ministers up at the church, with Reverend Highland conducting the training. And that's just for everybody, people who wanted to start doing it, people who've been doing it for 20-some years. Come this February, I will have been doing it 11 years. So I was very interested to see who all would turn up for this. Well, it turned out we had 11 people. Interestingly, none of the people who routinely read at 8 o'clock showed up. Now, I think a couple of those folks may have been out of town. But I know I know most of them were not. Well, there weren't that. I mean, there's only about five or six people that routinely read at 8 o'clock. But none of them showed up. I was there, of course. My Judge Fred was there, and two of the relative newcomers, but who had been very experienced at the churches from which they, the church from which they came from, husband and wife. They were there. There were two people that had been reading probably for a year or two or three now. They were there. There was one person who was completely new to the game, wanting to just, get started in it. And I think completely new, but he may have come from, because they came from another church. I don't know. He may have done it at another church, but I've not heard him talk about that. And Reverend Highland started off with a little church history, about how the synagogue, they read in the synagogue, and that's fine. I thought, oh, well, then maybe he's going to go in and talk about how, the office of clerk, the minor religious order of clerk developed in the Roman Catholic Church and the Church of England, and which then morphed into the lay reader position, or people, lay readers, lay Eucharistic ministers, distributing bread and wine. But he didn't. He just, he talked about the synagogue. And then it was just basic, how do you stand up in church and read? Practice ahead of time. Take it seriously. Don't go too fast. Enunciate clearly. Project your voice. Just basic, essentially grade school, junior high school stuff. And then, as far as distributing the wine goes, we went up around the altar and he went through, don't let go of the goblet, don't let go of the chalice. Keep your hand on it at all times. Keep the rag handy for spills, or the purificator, for spill. Again, just very basic stuff. What happens if somebody drops the bread and the wine? Well, that was actually one of the useful tidbits. He said, just ignore it and just notify him, and he'll give him a new piece of bread. And just leave the wine, just leave the bread and the wine. Well, that's useful to know because various people have handled that different ways, and there is a spoon that you can use to fish the stuff out with, if you want to go through that. But it was useful to know that he didn't want us to go through that hoo-ha. That's fine. Well, a lot of times that spoon's not there anyway, so it's kind of pointless to talk about it, I guess, if it's not there. He's very much close to the position of transubstantiation rather than the strictly Protestant position of a Reformed Protestant position of this being a memorial. Well, it's take this in remembrance that Christ died for you, and feed on Him in your hearts by faith with thanksgiving. I mean, that's the phrase that the Church of England instituted that ended up with people being on each side of that issue getting burnt depending on who was in power. And he says that. He says that at the end of the service. Charles Wilson a lot of times would not say that. But he says, "Oh, that's now the body and blood of Christ." And I'm thinking, no, it's not. I wanted to say I didn't say that, but it's not. It's bread and wine that's had the Holy Ghost called down upon it. So you have a real sense of the real presence there, but it's it's always interesting to know your current rector's theology on that. Okay, so and then he went through some of the choreography in terms of coming in and bowing and leaving and bowing and so forth, and he clarified some of the confusion on that because he'd been doing things slightly differently, and then he decided to go back to the way we were doing it anyway. So in that sense, there were two useful points in this hour and a half thing. But so before I went up there, I shopped at Walmart for food and then some stuff for the people in need, and then on the way home I stopped and got a case of winter lager and a calendar, a 2016 calendar, one of the big calendars, not one of those little things you print off, one I can see from here, hanging against the wall over here. Down at Staples. There was some guy in there in the line ahead of me who was returning something. He could barely speak English. And he kept kind of getting agitated, and I'm thinking, oh shit, I hope this guy doesn't pull one of these damn workplace shooting things, But he didn't. They opened up another line. So I got my $6 calendar and got the hell out of there. Meanwhile, my judge friend and I were starting to discuss sort of a scheduling anomaly, and I said, I think there's a little bit of a hidden agenda there, and he seemed fascinated by that. I said, well, this, he wanted to keep talking about it. I said, this isn't really the time or place. I said, we really need to be out of earshot of him when we talk about this. We never got around to, discussing that. That's probably just as well. Because I think he and I have very different attitudes toward this guy. Anyway, 2 pieces of useful information. So that was my morning. And home safe by the grace of God. And Paul's off tomorrow and on Monday. And there it is. So I'm going to say bye-bye YouTubers for today.